Bahasa Melayu
Bahasa Melayu, English kan?
Yalah.
Takut kena kecam lah bro. Sebab
Sial
tu aku letak ni besar-besar bro.
Okay, done. We are live on YouTube.
Alright, hello everyone. We are the three gentlemen fronting the Don't Stop conversations. And this evening we are very lucky to have the same people again, Hijazi and Nur Hakim to join us. So the topic of today's conversation would be, it's an open topic. So we thought of just opening up to the floor, or rather to the three of us, to just continue the conversation on current affairs. And before we start, can I invite Jaz and Hakim to share a few words?
Share a few words.
Just a few words, eh?
I think the words that I want to use today is with the surge in postings with regards to the official statement released by MUIS with regards to people celebrating or requested to celebrate their Raya at home. So that has been the sharing of the day. What you guys are thinking about it?
Yeah, I think it will be the sharing of a few weeks and potentially months. We will speak about it many months down the road.
Yeah, and I think the fact that probably this Raya we'll be zooming each other from our comfort of our own homes. Probably there'll be a lot of debates, a lot of insights, sharing of insights, and of course a lot of passionate discussions as well. So I thought, why not give a primer? Give our audience a taste of what Raya might be like in the next 2 weeks. So I know it's getting late, 10:15, 10:16 actually right now. But no worry, because we are all fresh and we are ready to roll, right, guys?
Hakim is fresh, Hakim. Hakim fresh as always.
Yep, he's fresh as always.
For the night.
And he's got
Ramadan.
his backup as well.
After days of tahajjud, what is this, right?
I know you miss the communal how do you call it?
Yeah,
Tarawih, right?
exactly. Tarawih.
All right, guys. So how do you think we should get this going? We've got quite an interesting range of topics which we could potentially discuss about, and I think based on our experience during the previous session, um, the flavor which we like to have for the meetings is really to have an open discussion. So as far as possible, we try to get the conversations flowing, get the thoughts going, and of course, we want to have a piece of your thoughts at this late
Oh,
hour.
no. Can you please find a word that rhymes? Because you had flowing, going, and
Blowing. We like to blow away your mind, bro.
Blown away, blown away.
Yeah, blown away. If you're not blown away today, we failed. All right.
maybe I'll start lah. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Of course, the talk of the town, or rather the talk of the community right now, is really, simply put, not being able to celebrate by visiting our family and our friends. And it's a huge deal for the Malay Muslim community. We'll probably remember this for our lifetime. 2020, Raya 2020, no visiting whatsoever. Now, while it may sound quite trivial, what's not going to someone's house and all that, but I think the more deep-seated issue here, which is the basis for quite a lot of the concerns, is really, if you're really to distill it down, it's really not being able to visit perhaps your parents, your grandparents, and really the elders who are closest to your nuclear family. And of course, quite a lot of us, I dare say majority of us, do not live with our parents or our grandparents, especially if we have families of our own. Now, and coming to their house during the first day of Hari Raya is a must. It's just like a reunion dinner. If you don't attend, it's probably something you will hear of for the entire year or many years to come. So not going down to our parents' place during Hari Raya on the first day is a big, big deal. And it's a big deal for all sides, really. For the children, I guess the question of how filial are you if you were to abide by the recommendations or the restrictions, and then how do you make up for it, perhaps in the days coming after that, and how do you replace it in the current context? How do you still show your filial piety, which is a big deal in the Malay Muslim community identity, I feel. So how do you make up for that? And on the parent side, it's really about perhaps well, maybe the same things. How how do you is perhaps is this culture and tradition bigger than the whole restriction thing? Is filial piety bigger than abiding by the recommendations?
Mm.
Can we sneak a couple of minutes or maybe an hour or two in the name of filial piety and do what is needful? It need not be extensive, but just being there. And I would say the key moment is really the asking for forgiveness. Can we sneak in that few minutes and then go back to our lives, or with that be tantamount to a breach of the law?
Mm.
There's really big things here. We have filial piety on one side, we've got societal rules on one side, and we've got law on one side.
Mhm.
So to be honest, no, there's no answer to this, and I think either way we look at it, the repercussions is going to stay with us for some time.
Mm. So
Yep.
we're in a kind of a new situation where probably in the past 1 or 2 generations, we've never had this kind of thing happening at this level, at this scale. So probably in terms of being within living memory, it's kind of hard to imagine not being there for our loved ones during such a joyous occasion. And not only just a joyous occasion, but it's something within the religion as well, religion and culture, where we have this, like what you mentioned, this filial piety, where we really have the physical contact between loved ones, between the younger ones and the elder ones, and we have that moment of forgiveness as well. So I think yes, you did emphasize a bit deeper into the changed situation where things would not be as what we would have imagined. So it's kind of tough to navigate this situation. So having said that, Jas, what do you think, based on what Hakim has mentioned, uh, clearly, as human beings, we have to look forward into the future. We can't just be looking into the past. I mean, we could to get some inspiration, but then we have to find a way forward. So in your opinion, what do you think could we possibly do in order to give homage to our traditions and of course to make do with what we have to abide by?
Hmm. I think following on through from what Hakim mentioned, I think with regards to this aspect of not being able to visit, I'm a bit disturbed actually by the fact that this kind of so-called instructions or so-called guidelines have to come out from our community's religious body. Now, don't get me wrong, because in these kind of instances, I always question as to why we are usually the most proactive community when it comes to this. Like, remember that we close our mosque first. We announced that we want to close our mosque first, restrict the movement, even though the case at that time was only 3 cases. And then after that, of course, now with the Hari Raya, we still have 1 week in a way, but for Muiz to come out very quickly to say that, it's time to just spend at home. This is, for me, I think it's just a bit presumptuous on my part. I mean, on my thinking, lah. The, we could have waited a bit more to see how things go, and could have perhaps allowed the government to actually perhaps give a guideline on how we could visit our parents and such, knowing that now they have introduced safe entry and such. I know that it's not applicable for our parents' space.
Yeah.
You don't have QR codes pasted at your mom's place and such. But I still think that we could have waited a bit more just to see how the situation pans out before officially giving this kind of guideline, because I think it's still quite early.
Mm.
So I feel that in this manner,
Mm.
our proactiveness is being exercised too zealously. I don't
I
know.
see.
This is just my personal opinion. But moving forward to your question, I think beyond to this year's manner of celebration,
Mm.
it's not so much about culture being disturbed in a sense. I think we probably have to look into like what Hakim said, filial piety.
Mm.
The question is now, do we exercise filial piety once a year, or do
Mm.
we want to take the opportunity once COVID clears and everything to be having it practiced every month of the year or every week of the year, whereby you celebrate, you visit relatives, you visit your mom,
Mm.
as usually as frequent as you can be. Because
Mm.
right now I'm so sure there's a lot of people who probably have never visited or do they're visiting only during Raya. They probably
Mm.
feel a bit like you say tekilan,
Right.
suddenly I will miss this opportunity. You never know.
True.
So I think as what Hakim said, this is really the question, the litmus test to see whether we will progress as a community in terms of exercising filial piety, not just secluded to only once a year kind of event, like how the Chinese celebrate reunion dinner. Perhaps we may want to look into the visiting of our family and practicing filial piety more regularly after COVID is over. Yeah.
So thanks just for your thoughts. I think from what you have shared earlier, a few things come to mind. One is that when it comes to proactiveness, or how, as I put it, uh, how do we inform the community on the ways of moving forward? Probably, I think, to be fair, there may not be any best solution, because one of the things which I have observed during this COVID pandemic is that there's so many wounds, from the past, which has been purged, not purged, or rather has been exposed. So there are a lot of hidden narratives which many of the younger generation may not be aware of, but these are the things which will then come to the surface, and things like even announcing that the Raya probably may not be cleared for visitations.
Yeah.
uh, it's not just about the surface level, policy or even the communication, but probably there are a lot of undercurrents beneath, which we are not aware of. And this is perhaps the time where, maybe Raya 2020 might be a time when we have an honest conversation about the things which have happened to the past in the community, and why are these things, holding us back, and what can we do to move on from here.
Mhm.
And it's not only just for the Malay community, I feel, but there are other communities as well, where there's a lot of different kind of narratives which are coming up again. And I think for our generation, we have to take the leap of faith. Are we willing to talk about these things, or are we going to park it one side or under the carpet?
True.
So I think that's a question that I have. Mm. So I think next thing which I wanted to share as well, or rather to get your thoughts, is that earlier on we spoke a bit about the filial piety portion of the celebrations. But how about, let's say, using technology in order to bridge the divide? In the past, as what you gentlemen have mentioned, when it comes to visiting some relatives, it is true that for some of them we only visit them a couple of times a year, or even once a year during the obligatory Raya visitations. But now with the advent of technology, which allows us to bridge the divide, do you think that this actually calls for more regular engagements? And the next question is, do you think people will feel pressured, because we know that Zoom is working, people are communicating even in times like this? So would there be an expectation that we might have to use this kind of platforms more often? Maybe just we could get your thoughts on that.
I think, yeah, probably Zoom or whatever teleconference kind of platform will aid in the communication part, but I think people will still miss the element of physical presence and such. So I don't think that these platforms will actually replace any parts of that connection and such. And I don't think it should also. Personally, for me, I don't think the advancement of technological platforms should take place and be the one that is substituting all this physical connection. So for me personally, I still want to look forward towards that physical engagement. I'm not, like this Hari Raya advertisement being spread around. Have you seen by Salam SG, right?
Uh,
I think where they were
I've seen
showing that.
snippets of it.
Yeah,
Snippets
so
of it.
they're trying to like say that it's a good thing for people to celebrate in their homes with Zoom. Yeah, I think yeah, it's nice. And once again, I like I said, I don't want to play into that kind of new normal kind of situation so early. Suddenly want to embrace this. I'm not that keen on it yet.
Right.
But perhaps over time, yeah, perhaps it will be one way of communicating, but definitely not be the way for it.
So it's more like a measure to be a stopgap measure in the current situation. But
Yeah,
probably, as what you mentioned, moving forward, we will still have to, rely on the tried and tested method, which is actual physical interactions,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
True.
All right. So Kim, you've heard from Jas. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for me, I think the novelty is there. So people will be, I mean, it's an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to, it's basically the argument of the glass is half full. So it's
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity for people to learn a new skill, get our more senior members of our family on board with the technology. And I think that was one of the key messages through that video that was being shared. You know, that the initial resistance and reluctance is being undone when they see how the technology is being able to compensate for the lack of physical meetup.
All right.
Yeah,
So well, I
True.
think that is it's a rather simplistic argument or a simplistic point.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
that the technology can do a certain role in easing this. Now that's what the
Right.
technology is there for. It's not something miraculous
Right.
that happened, but
Uh-huh.
more of like technology doing its thing.
Mm.
But with regards to how the people feel about doing it, I think that is not addressed by technology. How do people feel about this being implemented?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, people will probably accept, and they
Mm-hmm.
will probably abide by it as much as possible.
Mm.
Uh, but really, how do we feel about doing it? I think it really differs from each individual, and it will really be something that people will think and talk about. Now, I'm just looking through like Straits Times
Uh-huh.
Facebook page
Right.
and looking at the range of comments, and it's quite heated in that sense.
Mm.
The people coming from all directions,
Mm.
giving all sorts of justifications and thoughts. And some people are really not taking this very well at all. The
Okay.
anticipation is there would have been some kind of concession being made for
Right.
at least the first day of Hari Raya. I think that was some of the opinions of some of the people that are saying over there.
Mm.
And so now that it's revealed that it's not going to be granted, I think the disappointment is a huge one for some
Right.
of individuals. And there are people who say that, well, it's good because, we are fighting the common fight, which is a fair comment as well.
Right.
But I think right now for me personally, I'm inclined to take a step back and refrain from saying what is right and what is wrong.
Mm.
Yeah, because I think really when it comes to these kind of things, we can be quite divided, and
Mm.
what is our perspective of right may not be that for another person. So
Mm.
it's really a tricky and sensitive issue.
That's true. I think in the kind of situation which we are in now, to even express a certain opinion or stand on a particular topic, clearly, I think we all are entitled to what we think about or what we believe in. But to express this in a public forum, it might be very dangerous because people are simply, simply put, people are on the edge and they might perceive it to be an attack on their own position. So, like what you mentioned, I think is really very prudent to, as far as possible, be as sensitive as possible when expressing it, or better still, just keep it to your own loved ones or the people whom you trust, so that the context will still be there when the message is being delivered.
But I think
So,
that contrary to what you're saying, I mean, we are also at the brink or at the cusp of perhaps changing mentalities, changing,
mm,
solving some of the bigger problems that needed a catalyst. So
mm,
maybe we are now having that catalyst. But
true.
are there enough people to really sit down and think about it,
Mm,
think deeply and strategically to make use of this time to, catalyze some kind of a change that will give real impact in the generations to come.
mm. When it comes to nation building or community building kind of experiences, it is said that those societies which undergo great upheavals, the kind of cohesion that is engendered is much greater because you fight the common fight, like what you mentioned earlier. And when you see that there's real suffering there and there's a real effort to really turn the tables around, I think that's where the battles being fought, they are stored in the collective memory. And then, the future generations, they can tap on that well of, passions, the feelings, and more importantly, the lessons from it. So like what you mentioned, probably we are at the cusp of a change, We've been on autopilot for such a long time that we've kind of forgotten what a real fight is like. A war, for example. I mean, we are in a war actually. Um, so now is a moment where could we inspire, the people who are leading the community or who aspire to lead the community? Can they have the right tools, the right words to bring people to a higher level instead of everyone degrading to a certain, mess? Mm.
And I think I mean, when it comes to anything related to the community, I think that there needs to be a consensus that is derived from the community conversation itself.
Mm.
While it's one thing for us to probably say, though, that we got to be tactful, we got to be sensitive to other needs, we must also realize that when we are not voicing out certain contexts or certain concerns as a community, right, then other voices will be heard. So, like I said, for example, let's take the HBB, the home-based business context. You know, policies, or rather the government, or whoever it is, the leaders in the community moved and reacted in a proactive manner in that sense, only when there was a consensus coming out from a community's voice or that kind of thing. So with regards to this, as I mentioned, while it is perhaps not appropriate to be discussed on a public forum in that sense, because there are so many opinions and such, but I still thought that there could have been an opportunity for our leaders perhaps to forge a stronger identity for our community if we had been discussing about it in a way, in whatever congenial manner, because
Right.
you can have so many Zoom meetings, right?
Right.
So I would have preferred if a leader probably had a discussion maybe last week whereby we talk about this. What if we cannot visit our elderly? That kind of conversation, and then everybody gets on board that, and then after that, of course, everybody talks about it. But then you realize that after that, whatever that came out of that, then you can come up with a more resolute kind of decision. Then it looks like everybody's involved in this. Rather than this, suddenly you are like handcuffed to the fact that I can't. Understandably, yes. I mean, from a health issue, from a societal issue, yes,
True.
we agree. We know that it's no brainer. In fact, whatever that was highlighted by Muiz is something that we already know because it's until 1st June. So subconsciously, we already prepared. We know. It's just that somehow we are a closely knitted community. We want to be involved in the discussion. Even when Takbir Hari Raya, that there's been issues now. People talking about why is Surya not televising the
Takbir, right?
Takbir Raya. Yeah. So people, I mean, our community wants all these small nitty-gritty things to be discussed.
Right.
And when it comes out very nicely from a leader, let's say, our Mufti, right? Our previous Mufti, he has this way of putting things across whereby everybody will agree.
Right.
When the issue might be heated, but then he brings across a very, very nice general way of putting across, look, be patient and such, and everybody accepts that. So I mean, I would prefer that in that manner rather than to be told by just a WhatsApp message via that printed text of Kuba, so yeah, I mean, it could have been done better. But of course, like both of you said, of course, this is a very fragile time to be discussing these kind of things on a platform. But we have a responsibility to be discussing about this. Yeah, that's my thoughts.
So I think, I would agree with you. And I think that's where the value of Toastmasters, for example, I mean, that's where we got to know each other, right? And I think when it comes to expressing our thoughts, I wouldn't say in a proper way, but I would say in a way which is genuine, is authentic, and it states your position in a way which does not try to infringe, on the other party.
True,
I mean, of course, these are all very idealistic, and it may sound a bit fluffy because we are living in a country where there's so many different, interests coming together. It's converging, it's diverging, it steps on one another.
Yeah.
So how do we find our position? How do we create that confidence, in what we believe in, and how do we then advance our train of thoughts? And how do we get people to be on our side? I think that's a challenge for our community in these days. And in fact, before I pass over to Hakim, I must say that from what I've observed on social media, what I've heard from friends as well, I do see that there's a lot of newer voices coming on board. And these voices are very articulate as well. So they're able to share, from their own perspective on the ground, from various positions, and what is it like being on the side, and what would it be like in order to meet halfway, so that we all can, have at least a compromise.
True.
So that's a lesson for me. Yep. So Kim, you've heard from Jas and you've heard from myself. So probably when it comes from the position, or rather the aspect of proper communications, our community has always been known as a community which is, diplomatic. Uh, we are very respectful, and of course we are, willing to open up quite a lot of things for discussion, and of course at the end of the day, compromise as well. So how do you think we could use these traits that we have? I mean, these are stereotypes, definitely, right? But how could we, turn this into an asset in these times of need? Do you think it's actually something which we could use to good effect?
Yeah, I think it for me. I think it goes down. I mean, the larger decision or the larger announcement has been made. So now it really boils down to how individual units, individual families, or smaller communities will respond.
Mm.
And I think therein lies how we can capitalize or how we can utilize our strength within our own nuclear families and in relation to our close family, our close elderlies. Perhaps it's a time to open this discussion with them. I mean, be frank, be open, and discuss with them their feelings, their thoughts, and come to a consensus with regards to how this will look like in when comes the first day of Raya.
Mm.
It was a sensitive one where I had to also sort of like throw the initial ball with my parents-in-law and say, this year at Raya, we are not going there. How about you guys? But of course it's not so clear cut. And then we started talking about. I'm sure there will be people who will sneak to their parents' house. There will
That is
be.
for sure, right?
Will they be penalized? Will people complain on them and then get them into trouble? That kind of thing.
Mm.
So it's not certain. No one, or rather, I think it's the same for a lot of families as well.
Mm.
There's probably no single one family where everybody is, uh, you know, totally agreeable and has no qualms. And I'm not talking about a few people. I'm talking about when we talk about their aunties and uncles and all
True.
that. And so I don't think there's a single family on there. I may be wrong, but this
Mm.
is my sense.
Mm.
And especially since now that the numbers are dropping quite you know quite significantly, and we are looking at just today the construction sector is coming back online. So there's some steps towards easing some of the circuit breaker measures. So I think one of the biggest questions is, why can't one of these steps be visiting on Hari Raya? So the answer has been no. So how do we
Right.
bring this conversation and operationalize this decision?
Mm.
That's where we can tap on our strength. To really discuss with our own children, our own parents, and our close relatives,
Mm.
and perhaps tight. I wouldn't say get them to agree 100%.
Mm.
I would say tide them through
Right.
the 4th of June, and then a lot of people are saying, well, there's still almost the entire of June left to celebrate Hari Raya, right? Because
Right.
until 23rd of June, so to speak. So we can just hang tight and tight
Right.
through that 1 week,
Right.
and then come 1st of June, in our terms we can whack.
Right.
in a mass healthcare situation, don't whack.
You could imagine, what might happen that day.
We want to take a calibrated approach, but perhaps
Yeah.
if things go well, people will feel that burden eased off, really,
True. True.
because there's no black and white answer to this.
Mm.
It's just teetering and tiptoeing around the
Yeah.
issue and try and tide through and manage as best as we can.
I think
For the
probably the
record,
irony.
guys,
Sorry. Yeah.
sorry,
You
for the
say.
record, right? I just want to say that not moving to visit people is like one of the greatest news I receive, because I dread visiting people.
You're introvert, is
So,
it?
not introvert. It's just that
Right.
I mean, for me, I don't feel that there's a need to move around and visit people whom you've always visited in a sense. But that's for me
Right.
lah, you know.
Right.
But just to create that special day, just to force yourself to visit that kind of thing.
Right.
For me personally, I feel glad that I don't have to go through that motion.
Right.
But that does not take away the significance of those visits. I'm just saying that I'm embracing the fact that, like what Hakim said, if we have to discuss with our parents
Right.
and our family members that this new arrangement or this kind of restriction
Right.
is not at all bad in that sense. It just reframes your mind about how filial piety, how things are supposed to be in the future, you see?
Right.
Because as I was mentioning to my son just the other day about this not visiting, and he said, "Oh, can visit like hologram one." Then I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." I mean, kids are already embracing the idea of hologram visits. You know?
Right.
So we are the ones who are struggling to come to the. I mean, we are the sandwich generation in that sense. But
Mm.
even our kids are already forward-minded enough to think that, you know, oh yeah, it's okay. I can hologram visit. So yeah, I'm glad that, you know, I'm not going to physically visit people, and you guys can actually visit me on the first day of Hari Raya at my Zoom.
Right. Right. I think, okay, you know, one of the things which I've always wondered is the fact that, unlike other countries in the region, you know, Singapore, we don't really have this balik kampung kind of concept. Most of us, we are descendants of immigrants, you know. I mean, probably all of us, we are orang Jawa, right? I mean, partly in our ancestry. No, you're not? Yes, you are?
Italian.
Italiano, right? And Spanish. Hakim, I don't know what Dutch it is.
I think Portuguese.
Portuguese, yeah. So, you know, when it comes to the idea of balik kampung and to spend time with your loved ones, you know, for 2-3 weeks or even a month at a stretch, it's kind of alien to us in this generation. Probably our grandparents, you know, they were the last of that generation to have that experience.
Yeah.
So for us, the fact of the matter is, you know, we are never too far away from one another in Singapore. It's a small country, so with or without Hari Raya, you know, probably you might run into your cousins or your friends, you know, at Pasar Gilang, or you know, at any of the shopping centers, or even at the hotel, you know. You know?
I bump into my mom.
And that was
Yeah.
one of
Totally right, I'm sure.
the things they were saying. Why don't you guys just, if you need to, just meet at the NTUC, pre-designated NTUC.
Yeah. I mean, but we have no idea why they are going to buy potatoes or kentang in Baju Raya, you know.
Okay. So happy to bump into them, right?
Yeah. So happened that all the Malays who bump into each other, it was all, you know, the people they wanted to meet. You never know, right? Yeah. So I think, you know, yeah, that is Singapore for you. We are our kampung, we are our own city. So we are never too far away from one another. So what's there to say that, you know, aside from Raya, what's to say that we are not able to meet up with one another, right? Yeah, there's always a time if we make time for that. Mm.
Well, yeah, I would say that's true, but a Hari Raya visit is different from any other visit. I mean, I think some of us might have seen one of the videos that was being forwarded about this uncle literally pleading to the prime minister to just allow for one day, and I think that underlines the significance
Right.
of that one day. You know,
Mm.
in fact, he even distilled it to be just between parents and children. He said, forget about all the siblings and whatnot. He say we can forgo that, but between parent and child, and really that relationship and that identity in our Malay Muslim community is a very strong one between parent and child. You know, it extends beyond our life on earth, you know, to afterlife as well.
Mm.
So yeah, that's something, and because of that, so that whole religious point of view is being put into this whole thing as well. You know, are you being? I mean, filial piety is perhaps something we used to describe, you know, our relationship on earth. But are you being damned or
True.
for that matter? I'm sure some people are thinking of that. You know,
Right. True.
ruminating this whole idea. You know, on one hand, following the law, on the other hand, you know,
Especially
greater.
for grandparents with grandchildren, you realize that it takes a toll on their mental
Yeah.
health.
Yes.
I think my mom has it worse missing her grandchildren rather than missing me. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think one of the things which really make you reflect on, you know, our purpose and meaning of life on earth. And I think at the end of the day, it's really about the relationships which we try to nurture in spite of anything that happens, right? I mean,
Yeah.
family, friends, you know, people we care and we love for. So when it comes to a situation where you really don't, or rather are not able to express, you know, that love in a physical manner which you are familiar with, I think that's where people feel traumatized by, because you're not sure whether you are going to meet the person, even the day after tomorrow, you know. I mean, we never know where we are going to to
Move
pass
on.
on, yeah,
Yeah.
to move on, you know. Yeah, so I think it's kind of a sobering thought as well. Yeah.
I think it's further exaggerated by the fact that we are having this whole health pandemic.
Mm,
A lot of people are thinking that their health might be critically at stake. Is
mm,
this the one that breaks humanity?
right.
I'm sure there are people who are entertaining thoughts like that.
Mm,
Will we ever recover as a society, as a world,
mm,
to where we were half a year ago?
mm,
Will things change forever? Will we not still be able to visit each
right.
other come next Hari Raya in
Mm,
2021 because the world has
right.
changed?
Right.
So people are thinking along those lines. People are thinking
Mm,
maybe things might be worse then.
mm,
And we have a group of people who are looking into end of times, end of days.
mm,
That's pretty much part of our mentality and psyche as well. So it's
right.
not something that we can just forget about and ignore and pretend it's not there.
Mm,
But really, as what Hijazi says, there's a lot of perspective, a lot of people thinking a
mm,
lot of things. It would have been good if some of these voices, if not all
mm,
of these voices, were heard
right.
and at least have some of their concerns being addressed or being aired out.
Mm. So I think one of the main themes for, or rather the things which we have discussed so far, is really about allowing for people to express not only love, but to express the thoughts that they have, you know, on how society should move forward or could move forward. And I think when we have that assurance that our voices count, it really makes us more invested in the whole process rather than, you know, being forced to follow directives which we may not, you know, truly understand or even appreciate, right? Mm,
And I think, while we are talking about visiting families, right, there might be a segment of our community, elderly
mm,
especially, who might be thinking, why can I spend my last days at the masjid? I never know
right.
when I might step into the masjid.
True.
If I can do my repentance at the masjid. So while some of us are probably just, being hyped up over not being able to visit parents and such, some
Right.
people who are probably battling cancer,
Mm,
life-threatening disease, they just want a moment of solitude
true.
in masjids that they're
Mm,
not getting. So yeah, there's a lot of things that is happening and kind of happening for us as a community
mm,
because we are tightly knitted that kind of sense.
right.
But you can really feel that, yeah, lah, I mean, it does not loses its significance, but there's a lot of aspects to it that we probably never thought about for other people.
And may I add that the Hajj as well has been cancelled.
Yeah, that's true, exactly.
That's another thing.
Correct, that's true.
I think it's really about all the experiences which we have been brought up to, you know, cherish, and I think performing many of these, not, I wouldn't call it ritual, but I would say that it's a way of life, right? It's been heavily disrupted, and
Yeah,
when we have no alternative to make up for it, I think that really contributes to the sense of sorrow as well. And to compound that, you know, situation is the fact that you can't even reach out to your own family members who are close to you, but
yeah,
probably because of a in your IC, they just share a different address. It's practically, you know, a no go for you to even reach out to
okay.
them, and vice versa. So I think really it's really about having the empathy as well. Probably things which we have never thought about actively in the past. You know, for example, I mean, last time I used to be in the social enterprise sector, right? We always talk about beneficiaries, about social gaps, social needs, and all that. But I must say, and I must confess that it did appear to be a bit academic at times, because these are topics which seem a bit too far-fetched, you know, if we are not living in those kind of situations. But now all of us are beneficiaries, you know, all of us are suffering.
Yeah,
So like it or not, you know, we are going through that painful process. And I think that is where the empathy, the true empathy comes in. Because it's only when you go through it, when you know how it's like to be poor, for example, to lose your income, you know, to not be seen in a respected light. For example, the FMB, you know, operators, that's one. F&B delivery men as well, or delivery women,
Yeah.
or even the essential workers. There's so many different ways of looking at it, and I think the fact is that when you see that people don't really care about you, um, when in the past you used to have that respect or a certain level of esteem, that's where I think people will start questioning, whether I've been a bit too I think the word would be a bit too apathetic about it. Yeah. So I think this year probably one of the good outcomes is that we reflect a bit further, a bit deeper as well, and not only that, but we try to use the fruits of our reflection to do something about it, to help the needy, the needy in different ways, and we try to make it not only once or twice, but we try to extend further, to make it sustainable. So I think that might be a good outcome. Mm.
Our acts of kindness should go beyond this Ramadan period.
Yeah, definitely. It must go into Shawwal and beyond. Yeah.
Shawwal and Zulhijjah and
Yeah. So all right, guys, I think we covered quite a a heavy slew of topics for the first half. So I'm just wondering, would there be certain light-hearted moments which you'd like to maybe share with our listeners, our viewers, maybe just to reflect on a more optimistic note, what we could do, what we could possibly look forward to. Yeah. Anything that crosses your mind in the past few days, which you thought of sharing with us?
yeah, I was cutting my hair yesterday, and then there was this Caucasian guy.
Mhm.
He was also there for the appointment. So I sat down first, and then after that, he sat diagonally to me. And this Caucasian guy had no hair. He's bald. Okay. So he just had a few strands of hair. And as I was sitting down there, I was reflecting to myself. I said that, for the past 1.5 months, I was so bloody worried about my hair growing. And it was like the biggest issue in my life for the past 1.5 months.
Right.
And then I have this guy, Caucasian guy, who only has a few strands of hair, and he's going for a haircut.
Right.
And then it brought about a sense of realization for me, like, we complain about having our hair long, right? And then here we have someone who doesn't have hair at all.
Right.
It like struck on me, like, okay, this is like a self-development moment. Like sometimes we can be complaining about things that we have
Right.
in abundance, and then people who don't have anything actually just, perhaps they are also struggling and they don't have anything at all. They don't have hair. You see. So that was the moment where I was like, okay, I shall not complain about long hair anymore, because you never know. You go to an age whereby you don't have hair anymore, and you go to a salon or you go to a barber to actually have your hair shaved a bit.
Right.
His session was only, I think, around 5 minutes,
Okay.
7 minutes, just for the person just to carve out a few strands of hair. And I was like,
Right.
okay, that was a very humbling moment for me, seriously,
Right.
at that point of time.
Okay, that's quite amusing. I mean, in a way, but clearly it was a moment of learning for you as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Correct.
moment of epiphany, right? I mean, probably how he sees his own situation, you never know, but at least it made an impact on you, and it
Yeah.
spurred you to possibly to think better of your situation, and it gave you hope as well.
Exactly. I mean, the learning for me was that don't complain for
Yeah.
myself. Don't complain, because I was whining about my long hair, and
Right.
then you realize that, what they say about, the blind man was like, those kind of
Right.
analogy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wearing no slippers, and then I saw a man without one leg,
Right.
and yeah, I felt like that just now. I mean, yesterday.
So that's a very hairy moment for you.
I remember, yeah, exactly.
All right. So Hakim, I mean, do you have hairy moments as well, or no hair moments for you?
I have not gone to cut my hair,
Evidently.
but I've gone to the supermarket a few times.
Mhm.
So, ah,
Well, it sounds like
a torture.
torture
Were
for
you
you.
were you able to differentiate the vegetables?
contrary to popular belief, I actually can cook quite well.
Oh,
Ah. Oh yeah, how can I forget the the grills which you hosted us
yeah,
to
yeah,
a
yeah,
couple of
yeah.
times,
True,
right?
true. That's
Yeah.
true.
But Hakim, I've never seen you grilling vegetables before, so probably there's an area of growth for you this COVID season, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the only thing that is working well for me right now is really my diet. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Previously, there were a lot of temptations.
Mhm.
namely in the form of the bazaars.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm able to really control the kind of delicacies
Mm.
and this Hari Raya as well. All I need to do is not cook Hari
Ah,
Raya food.
right.
Then you know that will probably work out better than because Hari Raya is always an excuse to eat, right?
Right.
So this year there's no excuse because if you don't cook, you don't eat. Technically
Mm.
speaking,
Well, you could order, you know.
That's
yeah, but it's very hassleful, and then you don't know whether it's nice or not. Blah blah blah. It's,
Mm.
it's not like your parents' food or whichever. So it's all the more excuse to not eat and look after your diet.
Mm.
I guess
So,
that works out for me.
so it seems that probably this year or next year, we might move on to a new fashion trend for Malay costumes, slim fit, Yeah, have you ever seen that before? Yeah, that could be a possibility after, what we've gone through this
I mean,
season of trials.
if you think about it, chances are the one that's cooking all the yummy food are our parents and their generation. Maybe
Hmm.
no majority of the food, I would say.
yeah.
I can always be wrong, but so now that we don't get to visit our parents and we don't really get to see them, particularly on that first few day of Hari Raya, so we'll probably have to eat our millennial blend food lah.
Right.
Maybe
Imagine avocado with what?
yeah.
Lontong, is it?
No lontong, man. We don't know how to make lontong. We have to count our parents sometimes, right?
Have you not seen
Or
the
the
instant
kind of the
lontong at
kind
the NTUC?
it's not as delicious.
I'm gonna have my Mac rendang, Mac lontong.
McRanda.
Yeah, only our generation would pass ordering Mac delivery on the first day of Raya.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Is that what you call the Chinification of the Malay society? Is it? But unfortunately, this year no one is able to escape. No one's able to fly off to some exotic location.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. So I think the good thing is that everyone will be here on our island. So probably whether you like it or not, everyone will be on this island, trying to send out tentative feelers. Zoom meetings, phone calls, WhatsApp conversations, and yeah, I think it's going to be quite an interesting Raya in slightly over a week's time.
But think about it, bro. No food.
Hmm.
What is Raya without Raya food?
Yeah, that's
Do
true.
you think there might be some initiatives coming up from the ground? Probably some YouTube videos to teach you how to cook rendang, sayur lodeh,
I don't think so. But the thing that I kind of like I said, the word for me that I always again is tequilan, because I'm
Hmm.
looking at our neighbors up north.
Right.
Even they can't move interstate, right? In
Mhm.
that sense, they are confined to their green zones and such. They can still celebrate Hari Raya with people, their neighbors, that kind of thing.
Right.
Macam if I'm lucky enough to be living beside a makcik who cooks for their son, that kind of thing, I can feel that and I can
Mhm.
enjoy that.
Right.
But we are not going to be able to have that because we live in flats and such. So that part is still something that I cannot grasp with. We
Hmm.
can't enjoy Hari Raya as it is supposed to be because Malaysia is also still under quarantine and restricted
Right.
orders and such. But
Mhm.
because of their demographic, they can still enjoy these snippets of Hari Raya, which we don't get
Right.
to enjoy. So I still feel like the word that I will use is tequilan. If
Hmm.
if only we could have no restriction that block, right?
Right.
Only within our neighbors we still can celebrate. I still think
Yeah.
it's joyous
Right.
lah,
Hmm.
that we can have that kind of leeway lah in a way. So I
Hmm.
don't know
But
why
maybe
is
like
never
community
this.
cooking.
But
Maybe
then
like
again,
community cooking or something.
but then
Apa?
again, we have it in the form of the light touch approach.
Hmm.
It was ever mentioned by the government before that some of the things are accorded the light touch. So it means they don't
They don't
really,
enforce. Yeah,
I mean, they enforce, but with a light touch, whatever
yeah.
that
Right.
means.
Just a light
So,
touch.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I think this light touch, which you mentioned, Hakim, it should be taken considerably well by the community, meaning that has some sort of discretionary intelligence. You know, you don't go and abuse it. You don't go and show blatantly like you are celebrating that kind of thing, because that light touch, that gray area, is something that, yeah lah, So don't go around. I mean, let's say, for example, if someone like has the decency to have this light touch being applied,
Mm.
don't go showing in Instagram, don't
Right.
go showing in Facebook. No, that kind of thing. These are the kind of things that disturb and have
Mm.
ripple effects on the community at large.
Right.
Like the home-based business, for example, lah, everything was
Right.
well and fine until someone wants to talk about it.
Right.
So that light touch, Hakim is right. That light touch is very important for people to be
Mm.
aware.
Mm.
So you don't be too confined, and at the
Mm.
same time you don't be too blatant in that way, in that manner.
Mm. So I think it's about having the emotional intelligence as well to
Yeah,
assess the situation,
yeah,
and yeah, to get a sense of, this is something which we should cherish and we shouldn't abuse. But of
yeah,
course, I mean, that latitude, right? I mean, how do we come to the understanding? Everyone has a different position on it. So I think that could be quite a good exercise as well, to see who are the people who we see as the leaders, leaders in terms of doing it the way which we see as, maintaining that light touch approach. Sorry, I mean, maintaining that I would say, um, with that intelligence and not to abuse it. Mm,
yeah. It's true.
yeah.
And the beautiful thing about the light touch thing, if you actually execute it well, you are unseen and unheard.
Mm,
That's the whole point, isn't it?
Exactly, true.
So they won't,
Because
we won't know who these leaders are.
yeah. But the funny thing is that if you do it in a way which is, no one knows about it, then how do you learn from it, right? You just go through word of mouth. And probably that's how some of the most successful people, they are able to maintain their dominance, because these secrets don't go out too widely. It's only restricted within a certain trusted circle, and
yeah,
you see that these are the people who will eventually make it big. So I think that
yeah,
that's also a reflection for me as well.
right. Because I mean, let's take a very light kind of example. Let's say there is a family of four with just two parents, right? For
Mm,
example, and both know that they are well, healthy or that kind of thing. What is there to stop these four people to visit their parents to
mm,
have a good meal and that kind of thing? If they apply the light touch, no need to talk about it, no need to have pictures taken, and that kind of thing.
right,
You still get to celebrate the essence of Hari Raya. So,
right,
like what Hakim said, it's very important that people understand that you don't talk about it as if it's a big hoo-ha.
right,
Because the more you talk about this issue as if, oh, it's a big deal for the community,
right.
the more everybody will talk about it and it's being highlighted.
True.
But if everybody just realize, oh, okay, this is just a guideline. And I
Mm,
still like to use the word guideline.
mm,
If it's an enforcement, then of course you have police at every block
right.
saying, yeah. And the
Yeah.
police have already come out with a statement. SPF already say we don't do that,
Right.
right? So yeah, the intelligence, social intelligence is very, very important. Cannot
Mm,
stress how much important that social intelligence is very important.
right. Mm. It's quite interesting. In the first half of our conversation, we're talking about the need to have conversations, right, out there in the open, about things which really affect the community. And now we are at the part of the conversation where we are also talking about the need to have that understanding that there's certain things which you can't just talk about too openly about. So I think that there's a nice, tension point there, in my opinion. Um, and of course, it's also a moment of growth for us as a community as well. Where do we develop that intelligence to say that there are certain things which we can talk about confidently? We can be assertive about it, and there are certain things which we should be a bit more wary, a bit more careful, and probably a bit more conservative about. And that is where we will learn a lot, I think, because for example, if I may just refer back to the what happened a couple of weeks back, right? The home-based business one. I mean, these kind of things have been blowing up, in a cyclical fashion over the years. But why it became so big in the past weeks is because of the way that it was, highlighted, and it came at a point when many of the people in our community are suffering, from the loss of income, and the clampdown, or what was seen as a clampdown on HBBs. It was just a bit too painful to digest. And of course, when we heard about the restrictions being lifted, about a week and a half after that, there also, signs of relief that probably is because of the activism on the ground that compelled the powers that be to release, to move back a bit, and to cede ground to the HBBs. So I think there were a couple of lessons to learn from there, but probably all of us would, because given the diversity of our thoughts, our experiences, our lived experiences, we come to very different conclusions about it. So some people were saying, for example, that Sujimi, he deserves to be lauded because he has tried to bring the conversation onto a more mature platform and to talk about it openly. Whereas there's some people who say that he was trying to capitalize on the situation, that he was trying to, make so-called profit out of it. So I thought it was quite interesting as well.
Okay, what's your thoughts, Hakim?
Yeah, Hakim, what are your thoughts on that?
No further thoughts really. I mean, beyond the kind of, well, I would say chit chat that we're having today. I think beyond that, it's really a sitting down and introspection that needs to be done, and that really requires experts. It requires time and effort to seriously look into things. I guess right now here, well, we are sort of like air out our thoughts to it, our feelings about it, and that's good as well. That's one level of conversation, but a deeper level of conversation is needed if you want to have greater impact and effect. And we're not just talking about the light touch here. We're talking about really community movement in terms of mentality and all that, which was what Sadiki was saying in response to a crisis situation that we're having that has given us the opportunity to be able to speak about some of these things that previously we were not able to speak about. So yeah, for me, it's just the tension point is a different one. It's really about, should we be spending time speaking about it, or
That's
are we
true.
done,
Right.
quote unquote, ranting about it
True.
and hearing different perspectives?
And it's true, Hakim. I think that point is very true because from my aspect of when I'm doing training, right, I always highlight on the prophetic guidance when it comes to communication, right? And one of the prophetic guidance is that whenever there's a tension point or possibility of opportunity for fitna, whereby leave the discussion. So that is something that I think as a community we got to understand that whenever a topic or a discussion can raise up certain points of fitna, people can be on the right or wrong, or people can take sides. You have to leave that discussion. So that part where Hakim mentioned is so correct. Sometimes there's no need for us to be even discussing things that
Right.
it might look as though it matters, but actually when people leave that matter alone, then it will just dissipate. It does not even become something important or tangible to be discussed about, which is something that social media is not affording us because
Right.
somehow we feel that I got to
Right.
talk about this on social media, I got
Right.
to comment.
True.
Yeah, but that part about fitna is very important. Don't talk about it is the best solution to it.
I think to me it's about the journey of learning as well, right? About discovery, enlightenment. Because of the fact that all of us, I mean, of course, it's a cliche, we have different lives and we go through seeing probably the same things, but we come to different conclusions based on our own interpretations. So maybe for those who are at a stage of life where they are a bit more on the ranting side, they feel that they need um, to, to, to air their grievances. Probably, maybe the best thing is that they will have to learn on their own terms. That these are some of the learnings which they will have to go through. Maybe they get flamed, like this one guy who was talking about, if you recall, late last year, right? This Malay guy, young chap, Mr. T. He was talking so passionately about him being one of those privileged rich Malays, and he was looking down on his relatives. Well, I guess the good thing is that this year there'll be no Raya visitations, so that's not the worry for him. But I think secondly is that I hope that a person like him will come to the realization that many of the things which we think um, is our birthright, it is not. These things can be taken away at a moment's notice. Your health, your wealth, your family even. So if there were more humility in reflecting on that, it will help a lot, because it means that it's a growth journey where we start realizing what is important and we leave what is not crucial or important at the end of the day. So I think I got a message from one of okay, I know. Wait, let me just have a look. All right, okay. So we've been at it for, I think, coming to an hour already. So what do you guys think? Do you want to continue this for a couple of more minutes and we uh, have some lessons to part with, or would you like to continue, throughout the rest of the night?
I think it's fine. I think it's a very smooth conversation, and I like hearing your thoughts about it because, yeah, I mean, some concepts like whatever you guys have been mentioning are things that never came to my mind also about this, like touch, filial piety. We don't quite discuss it on a social media platform. I don't think people have that awareness to even discuss about it. But
Right.
this is correct. I mean, these are the kind of things that we should be conversing about.
It's very awkward for me as well. I mean, to discuss on a public platform, because my own experience has been that many of the most sensitive things in our community, we tend to talk about it behind closed doors. I mean, it's for good reason as well, because that is where we can really air our thoughts without the fear of being misquoted or even our comments taken out of context. But as what Jas has mentioned, quite strongly early on in our conversation, it's also about knowing that certain narratives must really be out there in the open, that we talk about it openly, sincerely, and passionately, because that's where we will learn, right, from one another. We hear oppositions, because if everything was behind closed doors, no doubt, things may happen, but to the average person on the street, we're not sure what exactly went to the whole mix, and what actually changed, in terms of the movement, the barometer. So that has always been a point of tension as well, I feel.
Hmm.
See Hakim and his
I
It's
have no
my
idea what he means, man.
it's my 11 o'clock. Hmm.
You know, this moments is the best time when we can actually have Kai demonstrating how to wear something kind of Zoom tutorials.
The what?
Kai with his how to wear your something tutorials. Remember the one he did before,
Oh yeah,
showing
yeah,
us
yeah.
how for Hari Raya just to show on Zoom or tutorials on how to wear something at home.
I
Actually,
think
that'd
that's
be a very good idea, man.
yeah, exactly. I think
Yeah.
it's a very interesting prospect. Now, since technology is one of the ways we are going to go, then just hype it up and ramp it up.
Exactly.
There are ways that people are saying that, or rather suggesting that we can cope by doing the takbir. We've clap and sang, so why not we do the takbir on the night of on the Hari Raya, or why don't we show what we are going to cook, or teach each other how to cook, teach each
Hmm.
other about you know the baju kurung and what have you, and then have block parties via Zoom or family
Yeah.
parties.
Hmm.
I know my wife's family is really starting to plan the Hari Raya Google Meet,
Hmm.
and things like that. So yeah, since we can't go one way, why don't we go 100% the other way?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, that's one way to look at it.
So this is going to be very smart nation kind of raya. Looks like it.
In fact, if you were to build, let's say we take into context, Jauhari Toastmasters Club, right? If they were to hold a massive kind of Hari Raya meeting whereby they teach people how to anyam ketupat just 2 nights before Hari Raya in that sense, and having all these people just coming on view to watch
Hmm.
the members how to anyam
Hmm.
ketupat, that will be like stupidly fun, but it's
Right.
memorable, you see. It's memorable in the sense that, hey, you see Chinese, Indians participating in the festive spirit of Hari Raya.
Hmm.
So we might be defining a new way of celebrating Hari Raya with our neighbors, like in that sense,
Right.
right?
I think in that sense, you will not only achieve the smart nation goals, you might also be aligned with the PA goals as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
After that, right, immediately they leave the circuit breaker. Look, we have integrated.
Finally, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, just I really like the idea. It's about sharing the fruits of our labor, and of course the beauty of our culture as well. To say that, let us give you a peek into the literally into our living rooms. I mean, do you recall watching Under One Roof last time?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it always has to be at the Chinese guy's home, right?
yeah.
Everyone gathers around that living room. But what's to say that it couldn't be in a Malay living room, for example, or a Muslim living room? To say that this is another version as well, things which you may never have noticed unless you were in one. Um, and who knows, you might learn something new as well.
For me, I'm actually anticipating how I'm going to make other relatives wait in the waiting room on Zoom, that kind of thing. So like
Right,
it's scheduled. People will come in at a certain time.
right,
That's interesting to know. You see
right.
people knocking at your Zoom room, just waiting to come in, and then you show them. I mean, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Can you imagine them saying that, okay, I'll be coming to your Zoom after Zoho,
Yeah.
and you see the time is only from 1:30 to 1:45. That's about it.
Exactly. That's right.
I mean, the
It's gonna
money
be.
part is important. That there's always, electronic transfer.
Now.
So that part, is quite important. The food part is tricky. We
Yeah,
can
the
always
food.
order, but that's gonna be tough.
But
Yeah,
delivery is still need, right? I mean, for parents to cook and then after that deliver for us, that would be something also, right?
I know there are some services that offer. I mean, we're talking about legit services that offer home to home delivery
Uh,
when it comes to like Hari Raya dishes and all that. So that might take flight.
Hmm.
Yeah,
People can make quick bucks out of that day itself. See?
Yeah.
Huh?
exactly.
I'm really curious to see how it'll be like, you know, during this coming Raya, and especially, I think one of the most defining moments of Raya, any Raya, is always about the prayers in the morning. The Salat Adil Fitri. That's something which is really, really, I think, is very emotional for most of us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
The Mufti is going to read the sermon,
Mm.
I think, after a certain time. So in a way, it's kind of coordinated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In the morning at 7:30, there will be the recitation of the takbir,
yeah,
and then up to a certain point, then where you're supposed to do your own Hari Raya prayers at home with your family and all that. And then beyond that, there will be a sermon by the Mufti.
Mm.
So in a way, it is still a gathering, a jama'ah of people doing the Eid Fitri prayers.
Mm.
Yeah, but we'll all be in our own homes lah. So maybe if that
Mm.
takes off well, it would be quite interesting
yeah.
Yeah.
how that goes.
See, that's the beauty of this conversation in the sense that we are now thinking of scenarios that can make this livelier, right? So
Right.
this is exactly what I'm trying to say, that if prior to whatever was released today in terms of an official statement, we had discussed this in this kind of
Right.
context. We think of creative ways on how to celebrate Raya, make it much more nicer, make it significant, or that kind of thing.
Mm.
It would have been perhaps received much more positively in that sense, because I thought that even the Mufti getting the ex-Mufti to participate in this, I thought that was a nice
Right.
gesture, and
Mm.
President Halima also be coming on board, right? So these
Mm.
are all very nice gestures, which is suitable for this kind of context. So I
Mm.
still think that it is going to be a significant Hari Raya.
Right.
Yeah lah, it's just the way we gonna perceive it, lah, how we take it as a community.
Mm.
Yeah. And they won't have space on Surya because Surya will be busy showing the typical Hari Raya programs, right? That's not
Exactly.
gonna change.
Correct. And the thing that people don't understand is that Surya is not a Malay dedicated, in that
Yeah.
context. So we can't be asking for this kind of things.
True. True.
So they don't
Yeah.
understand the secularism part of the country, you see.
Yeah. But I guess, it's good that we're talking about it because, of course, there's always certain OB markers, right? Which, to be fair, we don't really talk about it openly. But I think the greater question would be that, are we channeling our thoughts and our fears and our, solutions into things which really matter? So it's not really about the idea of having the takbir on Surya per se, but it's really about, do we have the platforms, do we have the channels to have these obligations being delivered? So if there is, I don't think there's a problem there,
Yeah.
because we are still able to perform our obligations
Yeah.
in a way which is proper, and the support platforms
True.
to achieve that.
True. It's going to be special, if the way they formulate it, whereby perhaps you have all the asatizas in Singapore,
Mm.
all takbir, and then you have, let's say, another group of businessmen, Muslim
Mm.
Malay businessmen also doing takbir concurrently. Then you can really see all the groups of people in our community, that we
Right.
want to take a leaf from.
Right.
Yeah, it's really nice because we don't get to see that in physical life form. We don't.
Right.
But if you see this, then it's really, politicians all one channel, asatizas one channel, businessmen one channel, healthcare workers all, you have
Yeah.
all those nice. It's very nice, I think.
Yeah.
Very interesting to see whether they will do it the same way or differently.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. I think they will have to go for training, for that. We got
Yeah.
10 more days to do that.
Exactly. I mean, I prefer it if it is like that. Make it a community affair lah. Everybody gambling tenaga, that kind of thing. Make it coordinated. Make it like something that we can be proud of. Our own mini kind of national day kind of celebration. It
Mm.
can be coordinated, right?
Definitely. I think if there's anything which we have always celebrated about Singapore is the fact that when we want to be, we can be really structured and we can achieve a lot of things together, with
Yeah,
a proper plan of action.
true.
So I think at the risk of sounding a bit too manufactured, I think there's always that part where we could use the best of having standard operating procedures to get things done, and where we could fill up the gaps with our own grounds up initiative. Why not? I think it might be a really great raya, coming. In fact, I've started observing that, for the newer flats, they are already the lampu lap lip coming up,
Mm.
and that's something which I think I've missed a lot about raya
Yeah,
since the
that's
late
true.
90s.
That's
Yeah,
true.
because ever since we had the new kind of flats, BTO flats without the corridors, I think a lot of people the new generation of Muslims or Malays to be specific, this is a part of the culture which has not been really expressed. So who knows? This raya might be a time when we really literally light up our corridors, our homes, with colorful lights to show
Yeah,
our celebration and to revive spirits. That could be one of
true.
the ways.
Yeah,
Mm,
that's a good one actually.
yeah.
PA
So I'm
should
going
be
to put
calling
a
us.
faulty bulb somewhere tomorrow from my window.
But that means you and your neighbor can't appreciate the lights at the same time, though.
Yeah.
Well, we find a way to do that, Either
Okay,
that be
but
racial harmony or racial, like
okay,
disharmony.
but me and Hakim want to sincerely see the salam salam minta maaf part between you and your brother.
Yeah. We also want to know now that you have the opportunity to do your Salat Hari Raya. You'll
Yeah,
actually,
stream it live, baby, stream it live.
Streaming live. Then you look at the sejadah, there's no one on it. Because I'm using the other sejadah lah.
Okay, masa we open our channel subuh see whether Ki wakes up.
the
Sekali
point
changing. Huh?
I think the interesting thing is how are the two of you going to celebrate in the sense that, you know, if your parents away and you are, in a way, you are not,
Yeah.
you're artificially away.
Artificial away.
Yeah, exactly.
You
I
know?
would say it's not okay lah. I mean, it's by construct and by intent lah. To put it that way.
You
Yeah.
can share your food with your other tenants. That's the good thing.
Yeah, actually, we've been sharing food, quite a fair bit over the past weeks, and I think that's the part which reminded me of many years ago. I think more than a decade ago when we were staying in our Yishun house as a
Mm.
family. Um, like what Jas mentioned, we literally had our neighbors coming out to the common corridor because it was an old flat, those built in the mid
Mm.
80s.
Yeah.
So we stayed in those kind of flats where there are only 4 units at a stretch. Then there's a huge common, what do you call it, the stairwell area.
Yeah.
So my Malay neighbor, he would come out and he would invite his family members to come over, and they would cook from this giant ass pot,
Ah,
Yeah, every raya. I think because they were staying there for about 5 to 7 years, every raya would be like that.
wow.
And I think that's the thing which I really cherish about those moments living there, because they really tried to bring back the kampung spirit, where you literally see the lemang lah, the lontong being cooked out in the open, and it's something which I've never seen before. Yeah. So I think of all the raya moments which I have gone through over the many years, that would definitely be one of the cherished moments for me, to see the sense of neighborliness, and every day they will be sending over food from the side, and then we'll be returning our own version of, or rather our own take of rendang lah, sayur lodeh and all that. Yeah. So yeah, I think thanks for reviving those memories. Quite sweet memories.
So this year just be you and your brother, and your tenant,
Yeah.
cooking together over one pot in the kitchen, hopefully.
Yep. I think we're making adobo together. How about that?
Adobo.
Oh well.
We can
But
see
I
what.
mean, yeah. Sorry. I mean, Kim and Jas, you remember those times when we had the Raya celebration at Jawari at the different locations? Yeah, I really find those moments to be really heartfelt as well. I mean, there's something so special about us getting together and sitting on the floor and sharing from the spread that we bring. Um, it's not really about the quality of the food per se to me, but it's really
Which
about the
one?
effort. Yeah. Huh?
Which
Yeah, it was
one?
really good. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah. But I would say that deeper than that, it's really about that sense of we found in ourselves, that level of friendship, that we wanted to cook the best food and to bring it to that place, and even to find the effort, to come together and just share those 3 to 4 hours together. Now that's something which is quite magical, I feel.
Dressing the part, that's another thing, you see.
The which one?
Dressing the part
Yeah.
on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Like it's the third week of Hari Raya already, but we still dress in baju kurung and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think Raya is really about the shared moments that we have, and probably that's the one thing which we always cherish throughout. I mean the ups and downs of friendship, right? That we think about the special moments which we shared at one point in time, and hopefully which we will share again in the future. So I think having that hope, to know that the friendship will still be alive somehow. That's something which I think people like myself, we've not been putting too much effort into it. And it takes a pandemic like this, right, to really reflect back on those moments where these kind of things happen, or were allowed to happen, because it's by his grace, right, that we are able to get together and we are able to share in our moments of yeah, friendship. Yeah.
Those with girlfriends and boyfriends can now view each other's homes
Yeah.
literally.
I was having this conversation yesterday with a
Yeah,
friend. I mean, yeah.
virtual background,
Huh? The what?
Always have virtual background.
Yeah, that's true. You
Virtual
may not
background.
even.
Just imagine, you use virtual background of a nice house or a nice place that's not yours.
Yeah.
Like, mak, ni lah mak dah kemas rumah. That kind of.
Yeah, Sadiki. That's a good idea for you.
Yeah. Looking at the situation around here,
Yeah.
Like,
would that be a very good idea?
baju suar dalam semua, behind your background actually. But then you don't want to show your mom, like, mak, dah prepare for Hari Raya, Alhamdulillah.
Paint
Wah,
house.
Yeah, that's sekali the laptop pivots away and
yeah. No, like there's a fan blowing, then the wind just disturbs your background. Then your mom will be like, Sadiki, apa tu? Then dia kata,
soalan siapa?
MBT shots lah. So,
MVT shot. You never know.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Alright,
what's our
guys. Yeah, what's the summary?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So I think I think it's been a very good evening. Picking your thoughts, your brains. That's very politically correct, right? I think there were many things which we brought up together and we discussed, and I think some of the common themes which we shared were things like the power of communication, authentic communication. That there are times when we have to rise to the occasion and we have to, make our points known, show where we stand, and with passion and with confidence. And there are also moments where we will have to, lay low, play along, and hope that everything would be going, smoothly behind the scenes. The other things which we also shared about were things like, filial piety. In the age of technology and in an age of a pandemic, um, which is raging at the moment, how do we then look forward to a future which is not necessarily cynical, but we still have hope in a better future, and knowing that we have certain resources at our disposal, and knowing that we have those, and we have a certain imagination, how do we then put together, into I would say, a raya of the future? And of course, when we reach towards the end of our conversation, we're talking about things like, you know, how can we liven up the raya? How do we create shared moments of joy, be it during the final few days of Ramadan, where we start sharing certain aspects of our culture, be it ketupat weaving, or making certain cakes or kuehs, or even some dishes, or even how to put on costumes. So those are certain things which we could consider. So I think all in all, I think we've managed to thankfully steer this conversation on a more positive note. We did discuss some of the more heavier aspects of the challenges which we are facing, and that's part of the today's KPI, right? But we managed to end on a positive note, and I hope that in the next couple of days before the Ramadan comes to a conclusion, and Raya makes his appearance, we will still be able to have this confidence. We will not be too cynical, but we will not be too fluffy either. Fluffy in the sense that because we think we're privileged, other people must think the same way as we do. Because at the end of the day, we all have our different life experiences.
Yeah.
And I hope that as a community, we would have this compassion for those who may not be having the best of times. But this is where we can come in to provide hope, inspiration, and guidance to other people around us. And hopefully, we will be able to have a raya which, if not physically feasible in terms of visiting, at least we'll be able to keep up some aspects of that, relationship building and nurturing. So yeah, I think that's all in all. For today's conversation, it's 11:35 now,
Wow.
and thank you so much, guys, for your thoughts.
Thank you. So